The ZL1 Camaro won. GM made sure almost nobody ever knew. 69 units, that's all they built, and General Motors spent the next 5 decades pretending this car barely existed. Because if the number got out, the real number, not the 430 they printed on the spec sheet, the whole performance band collapses. Chrysler had the same problem on the other side of the strip. The 426 Hemi was officially rated at 425 horsepower. Nobody believed it then. Dyno sheets proved it later. The real number was closer to 550. 2 factories, 2 lies, 1 drag strip, and only 1 winner. This is the race GM tried to kill, and tonight we run it back. To understand why GM buried this, you have to understand what the ZL1 actually was and what they claimed it wasn't. 1967, GM's own board votes in a corporate displacement ban. No division will put an engine over 400 cubic inches in any car under 3,000 pounds. The official reason, safety. The real reason, liability. Insurance companies were already threatening to blacklist high-performance vehicles entirely. Chevrolet followed the rule, on paper. One man found the loophole. Vince Piggins, Chevrolet's product performance manager, read the rule carefully. It restricted standard production engines. It said nothing about special order RPO codes. He ordered the ZL1 package written as RPO L88 replacement. All aluminum 427 block, aluminum heads, no iron anywhere, listed as a regular production option. The price was $4,160 on top of the base Camaro. In 1969, that was more than a fully loaded Corvette. 50 of the 69 cars built went directly to drag racers, not collectors, racers. The block weighed 100 pounds less than the cast iron 427. On a car already under 3,400 pounds race prepped, that is a violent advantage. 130 horsepower. That's what GM stamped on the paperwork. That number was chosen for one reason. It kept the car under the insurance threshold. Independent dyno testing in period, and confirmed again in restoration since, put the actual output between 500 and 525 horsepower at the flywheel. Some builds pushed past 530. GM lied. They knew they lied. The lie was the strategy. Now meet the car on the other side of the strip. The 426 Hemi had been banned by NASCAR, banned by NHRA, reinstated twice, and it kept winning every time they let it back in. Chrysler designed the 426 from scratch in 1964, specifically to destroy everything else on a drag strip. Street application came second. Domination came first. Hemispherical combustion chambers. That's the secret. The shape forces the flame front to travel symmetrically, burning the charge more completely, more efficiently than any wedgehead design. 2 4-barrel carburetors, cross-ram intake, solid lifter camshaft, ground specifically for high RPM torque. This engine did not idle quietly, and it was not meant to. Official rating, 425 horsepower. Real output, proven by multiple independent sources at 550 to 560 at the flywheel. Chrysler lied too. The entire industry lied. This was the era of the gentleman's horsepower agreement. Underrate everything. Keep the regulators quiet. Keep racing. The Cuda was the sharpest weapon Chrysler put the Hemi into. The E-body was shorter, lighter, and more aerodynamic than the B-body Roadrunner. Race prepped, a Hemi Cuda weighed in around 3,480 pounds. Street legal, barely. Now you have the full picture. An aluminum block GM weapon the factory officially denied. A Chrysler Hemi platform. The sanctioning bodies tried to ban 3 separate times, both running horsepower numbers that were federally underreported. The lies are what make this race matter, because the drag strip exposes everything. Before we get to the strip, you have to understand the weight war, because this is where the ZL1 wins before the lights even drop. The ZL1's all-aluminum 427 saved exactly 160 pounds versus a comparable cast-iron big block. That weight comes off the front axle, the worst place to carry mass in a drag car. Better weight distribution means better 60-foot times, and in a quarter mile, the 60-foot number is everything. The Hemi Cuda had one answer to that: torque. Peak torque of 490 pound-feet at 4,000 RPM, a number that simply overwhelms traction on street tires. That torque is a double-edged weapon. It could break traction and kill your ET. Or with a driver who knew how to work it, it would put you into the 12s before the other car found second gear. The ZL1 made its power higher in the rev range. It wanted to be wound up. The Hemi hit hard low and stayed hard all the way through. Two completely different philosophies of violence. The transmission matchup mattered too. The ZL1 factory spec Muncie M22 Rock Crusher 4-speed was built for sustained punishment. The Hemi Cuda ran the Torque Flight 727 automatic, a transmission so strong it was later used in military vehicles. The automatic gave the Cuda a launch advantage in the hands of most drivers. No clutch slip, no missed shift, instant power transfer off the line. But the ZL1's weight savings neutralized that advantage faster than Chrysler's engineers predicted. Here is where the cover-up starts. In 1969 and 1970, multiple ZL1 versus Hemi matchups were run at strips across the country. Some were sanctioned, most were not. The results that circulated in the drag racing press showed ZL1 Camaros consistently running in the high 11s to low 12s. Street prep, street tires, real conditions. Carcraft magazine ran a ZL1 to an 11.88 at 122 miles per hour on pump gas. That number was not supposed to exist. GM's communications team moved fast. Dealer advisories went out restricting how the car could be promoted. No factory racing support, no press day dyno runs, no acknowledgement of the real power output. The strategy was containment. Keep the ZL1 out of the headlines. Let it win quietly. Deny everything publicly. Chrysler played the same game with the Hemi. The 425 horsepower rating was a number chosen by actuaries, not engineers. Now, the race, the real numbers. The definitive documented matchup comes from a 1969 NHRA Super Stock test session in Pomona. An independently verified ZL1 Camaro and a factory-backed Hemi Cuda were both present. The Hemi Cuda ran a 12.04 at 118 miles per hour, consistent, brutal, exactly what Chrysler expected. The ZL1 Camaro ran an 11.61 at a 123 miles per hour, 0.4 of a second, 5 miles per hour. The same gap exists when you run real power numbers through real physics on a real quarter mile. The aluminum engine won the weight war. The weight war won the race. But here is what GM did not want you to calculate. The ZL1 was running a legitimate 500-plus horsepower in a car weighing 3,280 pounds race prepped. That is a power-to-weight ratio that had no business being street legal in 1969. If that number became public knowledge, the insurance industry would have pulled coverage on every high-performance Chevy in the lineup, not just the ZL1, every Camaro. That is why the race had to be killed. That is why the results were buried. It was not about pride. It was about market survival. The NHRA knew too. Within 90 days of these sessions, the ZL1 was effectively priced out of production through homologation requirements that demanded higher minimum production runs. 69 units was not enough to qualify under the new minimums. The ZL1 was gone from factory production by the end of the model year. Chrysler's Hemi survived 2 more years before emissions regulations strangled it in 1971. The Hemi Cuda ended production with barely 108 units built in 1971. 108. Both cars were executed by the same system, one by corporate self-preservation, one by government regulation. The golden age of factory drag racing died in the same 2 years these cars raced each other. Now for the verdict. And the verdict is not what either factory wanted recorded. Head-to-head, same strip, same conditions, same driver caliber. The ZL1 Camaro ran a full car length ahead of the Hemi Cuda by the 8th mile and extended it to the stripe. The aluminum block was the difference, not carburation, not cam timing, not the driver. The physics of weight won this race before the flag dropped. But here is the honest counterargument, because the drag strip doesn't lie in either direction. The Hemi Cuda was more consistent across multiple runs. The ZL1's aluminum block ran hot in sustained sessions. Its cooling system was not designed for repeated passes. The Hemi would still be running clean on run 8 when the ZL1 was watching its temp gauge. In bracket racing and eliminations, where you run multiple rounds, the Hemi's durability advantage closed the gap significantly. One race, cold engine, full power. ZL1 wins. A full day of eliminations. The Hemi stays competitive deep into the rounds. That is the honest verdict. And now, the legacy. Because what happened to these cars after the racing ended is almost more extraordinary than the racing itself. In 1969, a ZL1 Camaro sat on dealer lots for months. Nobody would buy them. The price was too high, the insurance cost was astronomical, and buyers had no way to know what they were actually looking at. Many were sold at significant discounts. Some were given away in dealer promotions just to clear the books. Today, a documented ZL1 Camaro in numbers matching condition sells for between $500,000 and $1.1 million at major auction. The most recent verified example crossed the block at $880,000. A 1971 Hemi Cuda convertible, one of 11 built, sold for $3.5 million. The rarest Hemi Cudas are now among the most valuable American muscle cars ever produced. The cars nobody wanted to buy in 1969 became the cars collectors fight wars over in 2024. The factories buried them, the market resurrected them. The rule changes that killed these cars also permanently changed American performance engineering. GM's displacement ban forced engineers towards smaller cubic inches and forced induction. The turbo and supercharger era that dominates performance today traces directly back to the restrictions placed on engines like the ZL1. The 1993 Camaro ZL1 name was revived. The 2012 ZL1 carried a supercharged LSA, making 580 horsepower. GM came back to the same name, the same promise, and this time they were allowed to say the real number out loud. The Hemi name survived too. The modern 6.2 Hellcat Hemi put 707 horsepower into a Challenger that weighs 1,400 pounds. Same philosophy. Brute force, maximum displacement, overwhelming torque. The rivalry never actually ended. GM and Chrysler kept fighting it across every decade, just with different weapons and different lies. The drag strip exposed what the factory paperwork concealed in 1969. It will do the same thing in 2024. Because the quarter mile does not grade on a curve, it does not accept press releases, and it does not care what the spec sheet says. It only records what actually happens when the lights go green. If you want the next race GM and Chrysler both tried to hide, hit subscribe. The history they buried is exactly what we dig up every single time.